we start off with Power BI with this yellow screen that I really don't like. I always just close it down. I wish I could find out a way of not appearing. But here, if you want to, you can grab data, you can look at some recent sources, and it has links to a whole bunch of stuff, right? So that's fine. I always close this down. Another question that people have is, you can see here I'm signed into Power BI. You do not need to be signed in. I can just log out and it doesn't affect Power BI at all. You can use all the functionality in terms of attaching yourself to data, in terms of building your resources. You do not need to be logged into Power BI. The reason that login is there's two things. I'm talking about this up here on the top right-hand side. Is that to be able to publish your reports to like an intranet page or something like that, you need to first internally publish the Power BI to a Microsoft server, essentially, or to a Microsoft site, right? Your IT department will know all about this. So to do that, a lot of departments now are tying their Active Directories, their Microsoft directories into Power BI. Your department may not be there. Some are. Some to log in to have a Power BI Pro license. And the Pro license, all that does is it gives you access to some publishing functionality and some shared space functionality. You just have to request it from the IT department. There's nobody in this course that actually you might need it long term, but to do this course, you do not need to be logged in. Okay. So that's the second reason to log in is that there is a Microsoft Marketplace. All right. So I can go. You can see here. We're going to come back to this. Here's a whole bunch of different visualizations. The Marketplace has hundreds more visualizations, but to access the Microsoft Marketplace, you need to be logged in. Departments will vary in terms of if they allow you to do that or not. So I wouldn't just log in willy-nilly on a work machine. I'd ask first. But the advantage of being able to access the marketplace is A, everything's secure, it's screened by Microsoft, there's no viruses or anything. B, if you don't see a chart here, there's a good chance you'll find the right chart on the Microsoft Marketplace. So anyhow, different departments are at different stages of where they are with that. Again, for the sake of this course, it makes no difference whatsoever. We can just go and do our thing. So let's look around and let's see what's here. All right, so we have the most three important buttons in Power BI on the left-hand side, okay? This flips between views. So I want you to all find those three buttons. There's no data in here at the moment, so I'll just describe them. Hang on, I'll just get my chat back up. The top view here is our report view. And you can see this is already clicked. It's defaulting here. And we can see all of these cool graphs that we can throw on the page if we had data in there. The second one here is a data tab. And if we had like a spreadsheet in here, this is where we'd see the table. So this gives us views of the data. The third one here is the model. And this is where, going back to a previous comment, we can link our data together. Now, Power BI second guesses and does some things automatically for us. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if any of you have ever worked with, for example, Microsoft Access, and we can see here in the schematic, I have a table, and there's lines joining them. We're going to learn what those lines mean and how to set them up and how extraordinarily powerful it enables our analysis to be. All right, so the three most important buttons in Power BI are here on the left-hand side. We can see now on the bottom, it says page 1, and I can now add as many pages as I want to. It's the same as Excel. I have tabs, and I can link things between tabs, not in the same way that Excel does, but in terms of certain behaviors. It's possible to create common behaviors between tabs. On the top, we've got a number of different menus. Between the old and the new version, this is where things are going to change most significantly. So we've got a home tab with, some standard, usual, most often used commands. I have an insert menu where I can start throwing in things like text boxes and buttons and shapes and images. I have a modeling tab. Now, the modeling tab is, hey, I want to change this from no decimal places to 2 decimal places. Or I want this to go from a regular decimal to a currency format, right? That kind of formatting and stuff like that, this is where it lives in Power BI. There's a view tab, which, allows me to tweak themes and stuff like that. This is actually different between the old and the new version. A lot of the view stuff actually appeared in file. We don't have themes in the older version, unfortunately. What we do have in the older version is things like I can change the size of my page. If I'm building something for cell phones, here's what it looks like on mobile. And I can sort of get grid lines. So a lot of this stuff looks different, but it's still there in the old version. We can see that as I click between these 3 buttons, my menus change. They become context dependent, okay? And as we'll see, as I get data in, stuff over here is going to change as well. I just want to talk about on the report view, these 3 collapsible and expandable panes. In the old version, the filters here is the information is actually down here on the visualization pane. So the old version, you might not see a pane that says filters. It's probably here on visualizations. So what do we have on the right-hand side? We have filters of filters. I don't want to have 2002, or I want everything except this, account code or this project number, all right? So filters can filter individual visualizations. I can set up a filter to filter everything on a page, or I can set up a filter to filter everything on every page. So that's useful to know. If I've got lots of data and I want to exclude a year on everything, I can just set it up to filter that on all pages. The visualization tab, this is where I click on a chart type and I add in, this is my axes. We will see once we get data in that this varies quite a lot. But the important thing is I've got a fields tab here, and next to it I have a formatting tab, right? The formatting tab, because there's nothing selected, is defaulting to formatting my page. But if I had a chart selected, I'd now be able to format the axes and stuff like that. And then in fields, this is where when I import data, which we're going to do in a second, this is where my data appears. So we're going to do a quick exercise in a second of just getting data in. Then we're going to go back to the slides. But before I go there, I just want to make sure that people were following, and whether you've opened Power BI or not, you managed to open it and you managed to kind of vaguely follow. If you forgot stuff, it's fine. We're going to repeat all of this. But how are people feeling in terms of opening Power BI and navigating around it? Oh, good, good. Nice one, Mark. You followed. Nice one, Oscar. Hooray. Okay. You got a hybrid version between old and new. Well, it might be. So everyone, I updated my personal machine like every month. My work machines tend to get updated every 3 months. So it's good that you got a hybrid version. It's probably a version I haven't seen, to be honest. But it's good. It's not old. The people with the older versions, you're still okay? Your Power BI was uninstalled. You're working with IT now. Okay, well, Sarah, once you get today, it's not going to make a huge heap of difference. We can play some catch up, but if you can get it up and running, that would be great. Just drop me a line in the chat to let me know you're up and running. Okay. All right, good. So we're going to do the following. I want you now. Actually, here's a question I should have said. Have you all managed to download those files? Remember the data files I talked about earlier on? Have we managed to download those onto your desktop? Brilliant. I need you to have downloaded at least the ICE file, but actually all of the Excel files. All right. So what we're going to do is we are going to... we're going to get into accounting stuff, but we are going to upload this one that is ice_thickness.xlsx. Now follow me. You might have used Power BI before, but I want you to exactly follow me because there's some things I want you to do in a particular order. So ignore the tab that's called duplicate data. We'll come back to that later on, right? We have a single tab called data, and this is what we're going to import, okay? Okay, so we're going to do this. I'm going to go back to my Power BI. Okay, now I am going to click on Get Data. So there's a little downward arrow there. Now I'm just going to pause here for a second. Going back to the SAP question. We're going to click on Excel in a second, but I'm going to come down here and click on this More button. Because I just want to show you, eventually, when it decides to wake up, what we can import from. So Excel, XML, JSON, I've got an example of where we worked with a department and they had 50 people using Excel spreadsheets. We standardized the spreadsheet, locked down the templates, the columns were identical. We chucked all of those spreadsheets in a folder, and then Power BI just went straight to the folder, went through all the 50 spreadsheets, and sucked all of that information together into a single data file, right? Anytime anybody updated their file and saved it, we just hit refresh in Power BI, it went back to the folder, and reaggregated everything. We can import from PDFs. If you've got tables and PDFs, you can point Power BI at a PDF. This sounds like, this is really, really, really useful. Access databases, Oracle databases, SAP, right? So here we go. We're starting hitting our SAP connectors down here. Although I really seriously doubt that IT is going to let you do this. They'll build you a separate data warehouse. A lot of Azure work, blob storage, Power BI data sets. We won't talk about those, but there's useful things that exist. Google Analytics, I mean, you can see, look at all of this kind of stuff. A useful thing for those of you that have dabbled in R and Python, or if you do these courses and you want to come back to us and learn more about R and Python, is these are programming languages to do analysis. We can embed R and Python into Power BI, which is really, really useful and very exciting. And look at all of this stuff, right? So anyhow, and there should be one here that's just a web page, actually. You can actually point this at a web page and scrape directly from a web page. We are going to do the boring one. I want us to click on Excel and hit Connect. So it's going to start off, and let's navigate to the folder we keep our things in. We are going to navigate to the file that says ice_thickness. And I want us to hit Open, but don't click anything else. Take your hand away from the mouse once you've clicked on Open. Okay, and it might actually take a second. So I want you guys to pause here, but have you got to this point? I want to see in the chat that you've got to this point. Have we got to this point? Nobody's responding. Yay. Now what people are going to realize is having a couple of monitors is going to be really useful. If you in any way can get 2 monitors to follow along and have Power BI up, it makes life a lot easier. One thing I want to point out here, in that Excel spreadsheet, we had a sheet called data and a sheet called duplicate data. So the first thing Power BI looks for is the sheet name. Now look down here. We have ranges. I'm not sure if you were aware, but in Excel, we can name a range. And what do I mean by that? I'm going to go to this ice thickness. If I highlight a chunk of data, and here you see where it says A1, you type in a name. I'm going to go new_, range, I have now defined that chunk of data with that name. Oh, okay. That's a good point, Aaron. I've updated this since the last course. You have the original file, so you'll just have data and Steve. Okay, there we go. So, yeah. Good point. I forgot about that. In Excel, if you don't know how to manage your named ranges, if you go to Formulas and Name Manager, it actually gives you here. No, oh, actually, I got two new range. I got new range twice. Okay, I got Steve twice. I got some duplicates. But this is where we can manage all of our name ranges. All right. I'm actually going to call it something different. I'm going to call this named range Bob, after my friend Bob. This is really quite useful because let's imagine I have an Excel spreadsheet and then somebody over here goes equals 1 plus 2. They put a calculation in over here on some random column. If I import that sheet, Power BI is going to pick this value up. It's going to give you 2 blank columns, and then in this column, it's going to come up with a number 3 with no column heading. It's a right pain in the backside. Whereas if, for example, I just highlight all my columns and I name that as a range, just the columns, it means that Power BI will only pick up that, right? It's good if you know your data source isn't going to change that much. It just gives you more control, right? So what does that mean? If I go back to my Power BI, I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to hit get data again. Actually, I need to save my ice thickness. Well, sorry. Okay, I'm going to go and grab an Excel file again. I'm going to go back to my ice thickness. We'll wait for a second, but we can now see I've got a named range called Bob, right? And you can see it's not that many lines, right? So this just gives you control. You don't have to use it, but I find it's very, very, very useful naming ranges in spreadsheets. If this is a spreadsheet from a Cognos data dump and it's just a single flat file, don't bother. Just import the entire sheet. But if you're importing from spreadsheets that other people get their fingers on, then it might be worth thinking about it. What we are going to do is we are going to select the checkbox next to data, and then we're not going to hit load. Don't hit load. It'll either say in older versions, it might say import. Did you go into the spreadsheet, Cherise, and put a new named range in? Because I did it locally on my machine, so you won't see the new range option unless you physically did it yourself. Let me know in a sec. What I want you guys to do is rather than hit load, I want you guys to hit transform data. It might be import on an older version, but I would always recommend you hit transform data. Oh, good stuff, Cherise. All right, so do you remember earlier on I said Power BI is actually two things. It's Power Query and Power BI. We saw Power BI just now. What we have just done by hitting transform data is open up this magical tool called Power Query. This also exists in an Excel 2016. Don't worry about that for now. What this does is this allows us to take data, manipulate data, merge tables together, split tables apart, split columns apart. It's an extraordinarily powerful tool to massage my data into something that is much, much more usable inside Power BI. At the very, very least, I want you to open up Power Query every time you enter a new data set just to do some sanity checks. So, are we all seeing Power Query? Sometimes what happens is it'll open up Power Query behind Power BI. So you might need to go and alt tab between it. But can I have some positive or negatives in the chat that you actually managed to? Okay, that's good. That's good, everybody. All right. So, okay, so here's my Power Query. So let's take a look at what Power Query actually is. We can see it's grabbed the table of data, my spreadsheet. I have station ID, station name, city, province, province code, relevant date, and so on. You can see what it's done is it's done some things for us. So the first and most important thing Power Query does is it formats things for us. So let's take a look at this column. You see here it says ABC, and it's saying, aha, this is a text field. ABC means text. Station name is ABC, is text, city is text, province is text, province code is text. Let's take a look at relevant date. It is interpreting this as a date, and I know because this little icon here, or I can even click on that icon, right? It'll tell me that it's a date field, right? Microsoft Power BI has some very powerful date functions. We like having dates in our data. We can see here there's a 1, 2, 3. This means this is a whole number. Snow depth is a whole number. And then we're back to 3 sets of text. So one of the things that I always do is I just make sure that the date is imported as a date. Sometimes it'll actually import a number as a text field because it's just done something weird, right? So it's vital, because otherwise you'll try and get your charts working and they're not going to work, and it's because they got imported in incorrectly. Now, that sounds like a bit of a downside, but the power this gives you is quite extraordinary, right? Now, I want to show you how Power Query works. What Power Query has done is it's gone and taken the data and it's applied a number of steps to that data. And we can see these steps on the right-hand side. You can see here it says applied steps, and you can see it's gray on the very last step it did. What I want everybody to do is take their mouse and go and click on the first step where it says source. Now what we're doing is we're into the mind of Power Query. This is taking us through the steps that automatically happen each time. So all this is saying is, I've been told there's a source of data, right? And this source of data has a whole bunch of tables. The first 2 are sheets, and the rest here are defined names. Okay, let's go and click on the next step, navigation. This now, if you remember, we told Power BI to just load the data table. So this now says it's navigated to the data table, and we can see that's happened here. Let's look at my data table, right? This is a common thing. We can see here station ID and station name and city aren't actually column names. They're just a first row of data. Because if you think about an Excel spreadsheet, it's just row number 1, right? That's all it is. So there is a command, and it does it next, called promote headers. Let's click on the next step. You can see now what it's done is it's taken that first row and promoted those as header names. But we can see, let's look at the column types, ABC123, ABC123, the date, ABC123. It hasn't yet decided what types of data the columns are. So let's click on changed type. Now it's gone in and it's changed the column types to the relevant types. Let's add an extra step into that sequence, right? I am going to, you see here it says relevant date. I want you to all do the same thing for me. Click on the column, all right? Now, I can either right-click and go down to rename, or I can just double-click on the column title. I am going to delete out the word relevant. I'm going to hit backspace. I'm just going to change it to date, because I don't like the word relevant. It makes me sad. Now I'm going to hit enter, and we can see here, look, I have now added a new step in my query called rename columns. Can I get some feedback on the chat that you managed to get to this point? Open the data, get it into Power Query, and rename that date column. It worked. Nice one, Sean. Here is the important thing. It's going to apply this set of rules every single time it goes, you got ahead of me there, Karen, right? What will happen is that when I refresh the data, that refreshed data always passes through this query, all right? So that means that that column title will always be changed. I want us to do something else. I want us to, let's do something. I'm going to filter just for one city. And yeah, it's kind of like a logbook, Charisse. It's the list of actions. Well, actually, that's a good explanation. This is the list of actions I'm going to do to my data. Kind of. Yes, yeah. You're thinking along the right lines. I am going to filter my dates. Okay, so let's stay with the date column. I've actually renamed the column. You know, in Excel, we can filter, we can add a filter to all the column titles, right? We can do the same here. So I'm going to click on my little drop down, and I'm going to come down here to date filters. Actually, first thing I'm going to do before I do that is I'm going to sort this ascending. So I can see 2002 is my first, okay. 2002 is my first year, and that starts in October. So I want to remove all 2002s because I don't want a partial year of data. So I am going to, and follow me along, click on my little downward arrow. I'm going to go to date filters. I am going to go slowly across to before. And my date is before, and I'm just going to go to, 2002. So I'm just going to choose, this is before the 1st of January. Hang on, I don't want, sorry, 2003. I'm going crazy. Not 2002. Is after. I'm going nuts. I want to keep everything which is after the 1st of January 2003. Okay, my brain was going because I haven't had coffee for a couple of hours. So you can see here, we do this in Excel. I want to keep everything that is after the 1st of January 2003. So everybody do that. Now let's hit OK. And we can now see that that has appeared here in my filtered rows. And now I have 2003 as my earliest thing. And keep on going and keep on going. All right? Can everybody in the comments let me know you've got to this point? Cool. Now, going back to a previous comment from Karen about asking when we refresh data, let's say this data gets refreshed and there's a whole bunch of 2001 data, it would automatically get excluded. So this is a really sensible way of having a massive big data dump, not having to rewrite your query in Cognos. Just let it do its thing. But when that Cognos CSV hits Power BI, you can just say, I don't care about anything before 2010 or 2005. Just filter it out. Because when we close this and apply it to Power BI, all of this filtered data is not going to get passed into Power BI. So before we do that, we've run over our time a second. I want to just do two more things, and then we're going to take a break. Up here, there's a whole bunch of stuff, all right, which we will look at another time. Use first row of headers. I can keep rows and remove rows. I can merge tables together. I can, and we're going to talk about pivoting and unpivoting and formatting. Splitting columns is really useful. Who's a big geek? Yes, Erin. This is, yeah. Just wait. You think this is geeky? We're going to take it. Hang on, Alistair. I take in billing data from two systems. One naming conventions are the numeric. There's Lex numeric. The Lex data comes in as null. Do you know how I fix this? I will have to take a look at the data. So we can do that afterwards, Alistair, or in one of the breaks today or tomorrow. But we'll definitely take a look at that. On the top here, I can add columns. You know what I mean? I can create custom columns. I can merge columns together, blah, blah, blah. A whole bunch of really cool things. There's lots of tools that we're not going to get into, right? If we want to reverse these, I'm not going to do it because I like these filters. You can just hit this little cross and it'll just remove it, all right? So you can undo something that you've done. Bear in mind, if you undo something that's halfway down, then it can cause some problems. And for those geeks in the audience, sometimes you want to start doing this at a command line, right? When you start getting comfortable with Power BI, I want to show you something that's extraordinarily dangerous. So let's go for it. If we go up to this thing called Advanced Editor, this is the place where the code for all of the queries that we've just done, this is the place where that is actually coded. So as we get more comfortable with programming Power BI over the next 6, 9, 12 months, we will start getting used to it. Or if you want to come back and do a Power User course with me, we can get into this. But, you know, this is where we can easily just type in, rather than 2003, I can type in 2004. So it's a nice, quick, easy fix. All right, so Advanced Editor is a useful place to go to check what's been going on. The last thing I want everybody to do before we take a break is to do this. Come across here to Close and Apply. So let's go and hit that Close and Apply button. And what this is now doing, it's taken the data. It's only taken the first 1,000 rows. When we build those queries, it's only taken the first 1,000 rows. Now what it's doing, it's taking our filters. It's going to grab the entire data set, which I think is about 3,000 rows, and it's applying those filters to my data set. And look over here on the right-hand side, lo and behold, I have all of my fields.